Hi, everyone. I think we're live here. My name is Ryan Sylvia. I'm the athletic director here at Middleborough High School, and thank you for tuning in to our fall sports virtual parent meeting. We're going to be reviewing. Sorry, excuse me one second. Okay, apologize for that. We're back here. We just had a little bit of an echo. Thanks for tuning in. This is our fall sports virtual parent meeting, which is replacing our normal fall sports parent meeting that we typically have in the auditorium. We're going to be reviewing mostly the general policies and how they would pertain to athletics for the upcoming fall season. But obviously, the situation is a little different this year with the circumstances around COVID-19. So there's some aspects of it that we're going to review on that as well. I have a PowerPoint presentation, and any questions that come up in the comments section, I am going to take a look at those at the end of the presentation and try to answer those as best I can. Hopefully, most of the questions get answered throughout the presentation. We're probably looking at about a 20 to 30 minute talk here, and then some question and answers. So we'll get started here with the presentation. So probably the most important thing for this season is making sure you're up with all your communication from the athletic department. I added in that little s'more icon there. If you haven't noticed yet, or if you haven't seen it yet, I've been sending out the newsletter throughout the summer through s'more, and really it's a extensive kind of outline of everything going on and all the updates, and things are constantly changing. So please make sure you read through that newsletter carefully. We try to get as much posted up on Facebook and Twitter. If you're watching tonight, you probably know that already. And if you haven't checked back at the athletics website, it's just listed there on the bottom of the screen, middleborough.k12.ma.us/athletics. That is that has been updated with everything as far as schedules, coaches' contact information, user fee policies. A lot of the things that we're going over tonight can be found on that website, but I know sometimes navigating it can be difficult, but make sure you definitely check that if you haven't done that yet. Just a quick thank you to our administration, our superintendent, Mr. Brian Lynch, Mr. Paul Brannigan, our principal, and the rest of our administration here at the high school and at Nichols Middle School, and our athletic trainer and assistant athletic director, Mrs. Mary Farley. It's, you know, since I got here, the administration has always been supportive of athletics. And that continues through what we're going through now. Thank you to just the community in general and the school committee for approving our plan to reopen athletics with the school year here. We're really fortunate to be able to offer those activities to our students. So thank you to our administration for that. Let's start off with athletics registration. Not a lot has changed in that regard in terms of the way you register. So going to the website, clicking on the Family ID icon. The registration is open now. It has been for a little while now, for about a week. We've already got 175 students registered, and we really want to get those registrations in before the start of the fall season, which is going to be Friday, September 25th. And that traditional fall season runs until November 20th. So it's a little bit of a shortened season. We're starting obviously a lot later than usual, and usually in the middle of August. Nichols Middle School practice and Fall 2 practice, we'll talk about a little bit. Those are going to start a week later. So I'm sure people are saying, well, why are we starting on a Friday? It really helps us in our athletic department here to make sure we get all those registrations as we lead up to the start of as we lead up to the end of the week there. And that Friday, it's going to be the first day, more of a check-in, get everybody settled, get everybody ready to go. And then those high school teams will be practicing on that Saturday morning. And then the same thing for Nichols Middle School and Fall 2 practice, except they'll start on the Friday and then pick back up on the Monday. So that's kind of the rationale behind that. Also, it's 1 week. The 9/25 date is 1 week later than when the state allowed us to start, and we chose as a school district to start a week later just to get ready with school first. For that fall 2 practice, the schedule will be limited, and I'll talk about that in a minute. The fall 2 season, so we're talking about fall 2 football, cheer, unified basketball, and volleyball. Those are the sports that are traditionally fall sports that are being played in fall 2. February 22nd to April 25th. That's now going to be their competition season. We are allowing them to register now, and you're only going to register for that once. So if you register now for fall 2, you'll start your practices with the limited practice schedule this fall, and then winter season will happen. When that fall 2 season comes up in February, we already have you registered, ready to go, user fees paid, and we continue that. There is 4 seasons allowed, but only 1 sport per season. So what do I mean by that? If we have a student who wants to play football in fall 2, but right now they choose not to do the fall 2 practice sessions because they'd rather run cross country or go out for the golf team or do one of the other sports that's offered in the fall because they've never been able to do that. That's okay, but you cannot practice football this season in fall and then also play on a team in the fall, if that makes sense. So you can play 4 seasons, but you can't play a sport this fall and do a fall 2 sport at the same time. We're not going to allow that. And really the practice times are most likely going to conflict with those types of things anyway. You could have a soccer player play soccer now and then go out for football in fall 2. That's something you could do. Registration continued. Some of the usual requirements: you have to have that physical on file within 13 months to be eligible. Upload it to Family ID if possible. Assuming most families are able to get an electronic copy from their doctor's office. If not, you can scan it as a PDF. And when you log into your Family ID profile, you can upload it right there. And then our athletic trainer goes in and is checking those constantly as they come in to make sure we have the most up-to-date there. If you do get a notification saying that your physical's expired, but you know you updated a new one, it's just because we have a little bit of a lag and we haven't caught up. We're going in there daily to update them. If you think there's an error, just shoot us an email, either Mary Farley or myself, and let us know, and we'll get it rectified. The baseline impact test. This is new for, well, it's a new thing for freshmen, incoming freshmen. Everyone else should be somewhat familiar with it. It has to be within 2 years. It has to be, we have to have a baseline on file. So what I mean by that is you actually have to take a computer baseline test, and then it registers with our system that we have that on file. The catch for this year is that we are going to email a link to every student who is in need of a baseline impact test. So it's mostly going to be incoming freshmen and juniors, because the juniors would have completed theirs their freshman year, and now the 2 years are up. So juniors should have already received that email to their school email address. Freshmen will be receiving it, I believe it's going to be next week, but keep an eye on the email on those school emails, and you have to do that baseline impact test from home on your own device and get that submitted. If you have an issue with their device at home, just let one of us know, either Mary Farley or myself, and we'll get you set up here at school on the internet. And then lastly, academic eligibility. Everyone has to maintain their academic eligibility throughout the year. That's really more for once the school year starts. We all start with a fresh slate for the most part in the fall season. And if you aren't academically eligible, we will certainly let you know that. The user fees. The user fee structure remains the same, with some adjustments to the refund policy. So user fees are due 9/25. So the day fall sports start, that's the day the user fees are due. The day, if you're participating in Nichols Middle School, the Nichols Middle School athletic program, or the fall 2 program, they're going to be due a week later because that's when those programs start. So that would be 10/2. Individual fee is $175. Individual cap is $350. And the family cap is $450. So in other words, if an individual participates in 2 sports and decides to go out for a 3rd sport, that's free. there's no fee for that. If there's multiple students in a family that are registered for multiple sports seasons, the max you will pay is $450. So basically, 2 user fees get you to $350, and then an additional $100. And you could have as many family members participating in as many sports that are available to them. Fall 2 is going to pay the user fee now, and it's good for practice and competition season. So I mentioned that already before. If you're planning on playing football for the practice season this fall and then playing again once the competition season starts in fall 2, you pay that user fee now, and it counts for the competition season. If you wait and register for fall 2 when the season comes because you're playing a traditional fall sport this season, that's fine too. You pay the user fee then. But you would still have to pay the user fee for the sport that you're participating in now. User fees continued. So refund policy, because I know there's going to be a lot of questions about this. With the uncertainty of what's going on, we did make sure we had something kind of concrete in place. So if a sport is started and the competition is played, there's not going to be a refund for the user fee. If a sport is moved to the floating season, the fee would carry over to that season. So in other words, under the circumstances, the season gets cut short, the games are canceled, but they get moved to fall 2 because that's an option for us. Then that user fee would just get carried over to fall 2. If the season is reduced to a practice only or intramural, there'll be no refund. So in other words, we start the season gets canceled, the competitions and games are canceled, but we're still permitted to provide training, practices every day after school as we normally would. Then there would be no refund for that. That's going to be just a continuation of the season at a practice-only schedule. If the season's terminated prior to the first competition and there's no practices, then that fee is going to carry over to the next athletic season. So whatever the next sport that the individual chooses to participate in, we're just going to carry that fee over to that athletic season. And then lastly, if the season is terminated and the student athlete decides not to participate in any sports for the rest of the year, then a refund would be issued prior to July 1. So we're basically going to compile any refunds that need to be issued and do them all together once we see kind of the landscape of what's going on and what exactly happens with all the different seasons. So that's what we're looking at as far as user fees. Nichols Middle School, if a program, if an intramural program is going to be run under a normal 5-day structure with practice and competitions, that fee has been increased to the usual fee. And we're talking about Nichols cross country. Just some important dates, and there'll be more. And again, please follow any newsletter or email updates that come from this office because things are constantly changing. But right now, these are the important dates we want people to look out for. 9/21 to 9/25. So we're talking about next week. We're going to have individual team meetings with our coaches. Could be most likely will be virtual, but there could be some in-person meetings, especially with teachers and students that are in school. So just make sure students are aware of that and they're checking in with their coaches. I'll talk about that in a little bit. 9/25, Friday, fall season starts. User fees are due. The following Friday, October 2nd, Fall 2 and Nichols Middle School season starts, and that's when those user fees are due. September 30th through 10/1. I know we're going backwards a little bit. That's a fundraiser kickoff, just a date to put on the calendar. I'm going to review that when we talk about MASBA in a few minutes. 10/1 is just our first actual competition of the year. That's the first golf match. Everybody else starts on the 9th. 10/3 is going to be a Saturday media day on the turf. So we're working with Sean Siciliano and Mr. Pelletier on a media day so we can get some good video footage, some good and do all our team pictures, uniforms, all that stuff on that Saturday the 3rd. So just something to be aware of. Make sure you get your uniform clean, ready to go for that day. And then Friday, October 9th is going to be the first competition. That's a busy day. I think we have 12 different events going between home and away on that day. So that's an exciting day to really get the season kicked off and rolling. Although golf will have started a little bit earlier just because weather considerations and things like that. Something to note for seniors, coaches, parents, senior day This initiative for this year is going to be Senior Day will be the first home game of the season. And so obviously trying to get ahead of any type of potential situation that could come up. We want to honor those seniors right away. Should be a nice day. We have and hopefully some good weather. And it could be the second home game. It could be the first home game. But the point is we want to get that done early in the season and make sure we honor those seniors. So points of emphasis for COVID-19, probably the most important thing to say before we even get into it is athletics is an extension of the classroom. It's an extension of what we do in school every day. So all of our same safety protocols and procedures that students and teachers are learning now and are executing now in school, they really carry over to the playing surface, wherever it may be, whether it's over at Field of Dreams, on the turf out here, on the road, on buses. All of those things apply in athletics. So our student athletes and coaches are following all the same protocols. So these are really just some points of emphasis, but face coverings need to be on our students and coaches all the time. Do they have to be on their face at all times? No, there's going to be opportunities for mask breaks, especially when you're actually active in the sport that you're playing, but they need to be on students all the time, on their person. Cleaning and disinfecting of equipment. Those are things that are happening through collaboration with our custodial staff and our maintenance staff, but also within our coaching staff. So if there's shared equipment, those things are being sprayed down. Coaches have their med kits are going to be stocked with hand sanitizer. We have hand sanitizer stations in all the gyms and also on the fencing on the field. And so we're just going to continue to make sure that we have cleaning and disinfecting equipment everywhere that we have our students and coaches present. Hand hygiene and hand sanitizer, I just talked about that, but just constantly reminding for hand washing. Physical distancing is a big part of the rule modifications and also everything that we do on a day-to-day level at practice. So that's going to be important as well. Personal water bottles, that's one I really want to emphasize. So we as of now, we are not intending to have water bottles provided, water jugs provided. The expectation is that students would arrive to their practice with a water bottle filled and ready to go, or their game. And we'll have access to refill those water bottles, but really you want to have something, a large container, so you have enough water for your practice or game. And we're going to continue to kind of reevaluate that policy as we go through, and if we find a better solution, then we can talk about that as well. We will have bottled water available here at the school, obviously if someone forgets theirs or something like that. Limited spectators. This is a policy that is still being looked at. The guidelines from the state are allowing for 50 spectators at an athletic event. That includes outdoor athletic events, which is the majority of what we're doing. Our league, of the 10 schools within our league, and our principals are all looking at this to find, hopefully come to common ground with what it's going to be, but we have to be ready for the fact that it could be a local decision. So what I mean by that is when you travel to an away contest, there are certain schools that are saying that they may have no spectators, home or away. There are some of the discussion has been around home spectators only, so we would not travel to away games. And so those are things that we just have to be ready for, and we will have a policy set. And if it is individual local policy, then we will make sure that we communicate each individual school's policy out to our parents and families and students in the community. Transportation, same type of restrictions that we have with transportation to and from school. However, I know a lot of our high school athletes are driving their own vehicles to and from school and may not have to deal with the buses. So we have additional buses that are going to have to happen for away competitions for, say, a sport like soccer that typically both teams would ride on one bus. That's now going to become two buses. There could be situations where a bus is shuttling the varsity team first and coming back for the JV. So these are really just things to be aware of. And I'll talk a little bit more about the transportation policy as it pertains to students riding in their parents' vehicles or getting rides to and from games and things like that in just a minute. And then the sport rule modifications. Hopefully, if you read the newsletter, you're able to see the modifications that came out from the MIAA. Those are what we will be following as far as how the rules of the game and how they will be played. Our coaches, those were made available to our coaches as soon as we had access to them. And when we met last week as a staff, we talked about these people are experts in their sport, and now you have to become experts in these new rules and make sure we're following them to keep the game safe. Obviously, there's a lot more around the COVID-19 situation, but I wanted to give everyone what I think you need to know right now, and give updates as necessary. Game schedules and notifications. I mentioned earlier that the game schedules have all been posted for the high school and the middle school. There will still be some additions to mostly the middle school schedule and the sub-varsity schedules. So take a look at those, get them in your calendar. Obviously, they're all subject to change, which is why we don't print schedules anymore. They're always going to be listed on the website. If you do have that app, the MIA app there, or if you don't have it, make sure you download that, get it on your phone, and sign up for the updates. As soon as one of those schedules gets changed, if you signed up for the update on that sport, you'll get an email telling you that the game has been postponed due to weather, or date has been changed, or the time got moved to a different time, whatever it might be. You'll notice that the schedules are abbreviated. Most of the varsity schedules are somewhere in the 8 to 10 range. There might be a few that are at 11. And then the middle school and sub-varsity schedules are in the 5 to 7 range right now. Like I said, the sub-varsity schedules there are going to be some additions. The varsity schedules, it's a unique situation where there is no MIA playoff system. There is no state tournament. So what we've developed as a league is a league tournament. So basically every school in the league makes the tournament, and it's really a tournament to determine the league champion. So that's going to guarantee each school at least 2 additional games at the end of the season. Most teams are going to get 3 or more, could be as many as 5. So that's going to be how the postseason will look. And a lot of this is really, it's not in an effort to reduce the number of games. It's really just a matter of time and constraints that we have for the number of games we can play in a week and the time that we're allotted. Unfortunately, we're required to have 14 days for safety reasons, 14 days, calendar days of practice prior to the first competition for high school level, that's why that puts that October 9th date as our first date. Practice schedules. We have an entire practice schedule made out for the turf here at the high school. It's somewhat complicated, and to distribute that whole schedule to everyone would not make sense. So those schedules are going to be distributed by individual team coaches in whatever format they see fit. Varsity and JV teams should expect to practice 5 to 6 times per week, and Fall 2 teams are only going to be practicing 1 to 3 times. Most are going to be 2 to 3 times a week for the Fall 2. So those teams that are getting ready for that season to happen in February. Coaches' contact information has been updated on the website as well. So every coach of every program for the Fall and the Fall 2 has an email address listed on the Middleborough Athletics website. So make sure if you have a specific question for your practice schedule, reach out to the coach. They are still being developed. Like I said, field hockey and soccer, we have that turf schedule. But again, as we know, schedules are always subject to change. Team practices and game sites. This is just a quick hit. Varsity soccer is going to be playing at boys and girls soccer on the turf for their games. There is a possibility with a double booking the turf. We may have to play over at the park at Battis Field for a game or 2, depending on what happens with weather. JV soccer will be at Field of Dreams. Biggest reason for that, we cannot stagger games on the turf out here. With the situation that we have with just the one field and Triple E, those JV soccer games have to happen at the same time as varsity in order to free up the turf. So JV will be over at Field of Dreams, and that's not something that not to take them away from playing on the turf. The JV soccer team and the JV field hockey team will have practice times on the turf. But even once the entire facility is done, the JV soccer team is slated to play on the grass field on the JV baseball field, and that's by design with the schedule. Varsity field hockey will play on the turf. JV field hockey will be on the turf, and that's a situation again with the officials. We have one set of officials that does the varsity game, and then they stay on and do the JV game and field hockey. So those games will happen back to back right on the turf, and will actually be scheduled up earlier because of the situation we have with Triple E, which I'll be talking about in just a minute. Cross country, the course here at the high school is not completed yet because of the construction project, so that those practices and meets are going to be over at Nichols Middle School. It actually presents a unique opportunity for us to work with the Nichols Middle School cross country program a little bit and have our high school coaches and high school athletes kind of in there a little bit together. Majorettes will be at MHS and Nichols Middle School depending on which game they're performing at and when they're practicing. Nichols Middle School teams will all be at Nichols Middle School for practices and games. If we have an opportunity to bring them up to the turf field for practice or a game, we'll definitely take a look at that. But as of right now, those games are all scheduled for Nichols Middle School. Fall 2, football will be over at Pierce Playground or Battis Field. That schedule is going to be worked out with the park department, and that's looking like it's looking like a 3-day-a-week practice schedule for the month of October and maybe a little bit into November. But again, that schedule is still being worked out. Volleyball will be in the gym. It's looking at like at least 2 days a week. Cheer, and that's the high school gym. Cheer will be at the Memorial Early Childhood Center gym. That's where their mats are located. They get that full mat space to themselves. Again, practice only season, so there'll be 2 to 3 practices a week there. Unified basketball will be at the MHS gym. As of now, we're looking at once a week. There's potential we could add additional practices there, but really anything that's happening in the high school gym after school right now, we're just making sure that we monitor closely. There's a lot of movement in the gym here, just with all the protocols that we have in the building. Triple E and heat restrictions, not something that is new to us here in Middleborough, but we are in a high-risk zone, and we are on a dusk to dawn restriction right now. So all practices will be done indoors by 7 p.m. Most of those are going to be done by 6 p.m. Right now, the dusk is scheduled for is at 7:18, and it gradually gets moved up. And that's when we start to move up those practice times and game times and things like that as the season goes on. Hopefully we get that hard frost and it becomes a non-issue. Just a reminder for parents, students, throw an extra insect repellent into the gym bag. Make sure students have that. We'll have those in the med kits. But we can't supply insect repellent for every student and every coach for the entire season. So if everyone pitches in, make sure you have that on you. We're going to encourage that as it starts to get closer to that dusk period. We just want to be as safe as possible. We're working with the Plymouth County Mosquito Control Project to schedule spraying and make sure we can get that done on all the athletic fields. And then the heat restrictions. Little bit of a silver lining here. This is usually something we deal with in August and early September with the wet bulb globe temperature reading. It's based on different factors with temperature and dew point and wind and things like that. But that's monitored by our athletic trainer and communicated to coaches as needed. So if we hit that level of danger with the heat restriction, then we would have to, basically apply some additional restrictions on the practice with what equipment's being worn, how many water breaks, that type of thing. Before we, let me see one thing. Okay, so injuries in athletic training, just kind of a general statement here. Everything we do at the high school in terms of injury prevention, we have the strength and conditioning program. We're always trying to encourage kids to make sure that they're stretching and training in the off season, running so that they're coming in conditioned. Nutrition is a huge part of that in the off season, but more so in season, making sure students have something to eat if they're in school for the whole day, or if they're on a remote day, make sure that they have something in them and are hydrating before they come into practice. We're fortunate to have a full-time athletic trainer here on staff. So Mary Farley is available for coverage at all of our home games. With us being spread out, we try to prioritize kind of the higher risk sports that need that athletic training coverage. But we also have all of our coaches that are required to be first aid, CPR certified, as well as AED. And we'll have an AED on site at all of our practice and game locations. One thing that we always talk about with injuries is if your son or daughter does sustain an injury, utilize the athletic training services that we have here at the school. Most likely our athletic trainer has seen the injury before, knows what to recommend if they need to be seen by a doctor or not, or if sometimes you go to see the doctor and regardless of what the injury is, they say you're out 2 weeks. Whereas if it's something that can be treated here at the school, you may be back a little bit sooner with the right treatment. So just make sure you see the athletic trainer with any injuries and return to play situations. We talked about impact testing already and concussion management. Concussion education is a piece of the law that was passed a while back. So it's important that you know when you're registering for athletics, there is a statement on our concussion policy in there and a review of all of everything that supports the concussion policy and that you need to be aware of. And that serves as your education on concussions and how to go about what to do if your son or daughter does sustain one. Make sure that if you have a question on it, just refer to the athletic trainer. We deal with this all the time when these things happen, and we need to be made aware of it if there is a potential concussion. And then limit on number of students in the athletic training room. That's really more of a COVID-19 situation where we can only really have 2 or 3 students in there at a time. It's a little bit of a change in the sense that students are going to be used to coming after school. If they need treatment or they need to get wrapped or taped or ice or whatever it might be, it's kind of just come in and grab what you need, and that really can't be the case. It's going to be a sign in, sign out type of situation. 1 in, 1 out situation if they need to access any of the services in there. We will work with students to have an ice cooler ready with bags ready so that outside of the training room so that they can grab what they need, so we're not getting bogged down with a lot. Going back to the transportation policy a little bit, not a ton has changed with the school buses and vans being really buses being provided for away contests, games or practices at Battis Field or Field of Dreams may use private vehicles. So if you're being if you're driving yourself over to Battis or Pierce for a practice, we just have to have the transportation form filled out and the insurance on file with the superintendent/athletic department, and the owner has to have a certain level of liability insurance coverage. So that's all listed on the transportation form. Anyone who's driving themselves to practices or games needs to have that on file with the athletic department. We're not permitting at this time athletes to drive themselves or ride with other parents or friends to and from games. The expectation is that they would ride on the bus. Now, if a student needs to be picked up at a game, an away game, as long as we have notice, the day before that's happening, and the coach is aware of what's going on, then that's not an issue. Just something that we talk about every season. Priorities of a student athlete. We really want a true commitment if you're going to be an athlete here in Middleborough. Health and family is always number 1. Those are excused absences. Things come up with family. Obviously, a health-related issue or an injury is going to be an excused absence from practice or school. And then very next on the list is academics. The daily attendance goes right along with that. So academics is your number 1 concern. If you need to see a teacher after school, if you need to make up a test, something like that, obviously that's going to be excused from practice. But the attendance piece is big for this year. We expect that every student is in school every day and active in their classes and staying on top of their studies. And on remote days, the expectation doesn't change. On remote days, the student should be checking in with their teacher and completing the assignments and whatever requirement that teacher has for that remote class on those days. For all, in the case of the high school, for all 4 blocks, they need to be reporting to class if they're going to be at practice that day. And that's something that we're going to be checking up on with coaches on a daily basis. And then third on the list, which is pretty high up on the list for priorities, is the team and the commitment to the team. And things like social events or work or things like that do not constitute an excused absence from practice. The expectation is you're at practice every day. Every day we have a scheduled practice or game. Then you're a member of that team and you're supposed to be there. Team meetings, I mentioned earlier, coaches will be scheduling team meetings next week in preparation for the season. So we start next Friday for the traditional fall season for the high school. So make sure you're checking your school email. You should, as we get the registrations coming in from Family ID, we'll know exactly which students are registered for the teams, and coaches will be scheduling those meetings. We're going to have team meetings, and we'll also have parent meetings just to kind of review team policies, expectations, and those are things that may differ from team to team slightly from the usual athletic department policies. And then students and families should reach out to their coach with specific questions. So all of the contacts are listed on the website. You can reach out to me at my email address or my phone number in the office here as well if you have a athletic department question or a general question. And I can answer any questions about the teams as well. But really, if they're specific to that sport, it's best to try to check in with the coach first because they can probably give you a better, more accurate answer. So before we get to the questions aspect, and I can check the comments section to see how many questions we have tonight. The Middleborough Ice Hockey Group I just want to recognize their board and everything they do for our ice hockey program as far as fundraising to make sure those students have everything they need in terms of ice time and equipment and whatever it is that they need. So their website, they have a really well done website, middleboroughhockey.com, where really any information you want to know about the fundraisers they have coming up, you can get on there. I know similar to MASBA, their golf tournament was canceled this year due to COVID. So they're going to be looking, I would think, to have some important fundraisers coming up this off season. So check out that website. The MASBA group is the next slide. And again, this is a group that I meet with really on at least a monthly basis to review what we need and how they can support our athletic program. This is our board that meets on that monthly basis. We recently added a school rep this past year, right before the spring hit, with Sean Siciliano. So we now have a 5-member board. Just kind of an overview of what MASBA does. Over the past 2 years, we've raised over $90,000, probably somewhere in the range of $150,000 in the past 3 years. So a huge amount of money that goes directly back to support our students and our programs. One thing they've done is fund 14 additional coaching positions. We have close to 60 stipend positions paid for by the school budget, which is a huge coaching staff for our school. But MASBA goes above and beyond and supplies 14 additional coaching positions for teams that have large numbers. If we want an opportunity to offer an additional level like a freshman program or an assistant coach for the wrestling team or whatever it might be. So they've been really supportive in that way. And as well as everything from uniforms, athletic equipment, audio-visual equipment with the live streaming cameras, which we are hopefully going to be using this season and moving forward in the new building so we can live stream athletic events, field maintenance. If we're in need of using a town field or a private organization field, the Middleborough Youth Soccer fields, we were able to assist with field maintenance and the costs associated with that. So, and then really anything that coaches request. So I can't emphasize how important the fundraisers are that we do, especially the large-scale fundraisers for the full athletic department. So we did they did approve to have one fundraiser this fall, and it's the Sachem Gold Cards, which I think everybody should be familiar with now. We've sold enough of them over the past few years. The biggest difference for this year is because of the restriction on spectators, we really can't come out and say that that gold card will get you into an athletic event free of charge. Should the guidelines change, we certainly can look at that and allow that opportunity going forward. But for this year, the goal is to have some of those fundraising meetings take place on September 30th and October 1st. We are limiting this to high school students only. We do not have the Nichols Middle School students participating in this fundraiser this season. Each student is being asked to participate by selling 5 Sachem discount cards at $5 each. So the gold cards are Sachem cards, discount cards that basically you buy the card for $20 and it gets you multiple discounts at various businesses in our region. And you can really save a lot of money if you use the card for the cost. So that is actually a typo there. The cards are $20 each, not $5 each. Each student participating will be issued 5 cards. So again, we never make a fundraiser mandatory. I don't think that's the right way to go about things. But we do encourage everyone to participate because everything we raise goes right back to the students. There's not going to be any door-to-door sales. There's no blitz this year, and everybody has the option to sell online. So really, you're taking those 5 cards and trying to sell online through the platform that we're going to introduce to the kids, or just sell them to family and friends that you're close with and you've been in close contact with. This again is a MASBA approved fundraiser. This is not a school district fundraiser. It's through the Middleborough All Sports Boosters Association. So thank you for listening. I'm going to switch over here so I can see if there are any comments or questions. I'm sure that there are a number of questions that came up through this presentation, and maybe some that I can't really answer right now. But again, feel free to call the office, send me an email, and we'll do our best to get the questions answered. Before I even start, there was one piece that I wanted to review. I talked about it, the high school forum, locker rooms and changing facilities and those types of things, bathrooms. Once the games start, we intend to have portable restrooms available, handicap accessible portable restrooms available at all of our game locations, if they are outdoor sites, which most of them are. So that should address the bathroom issue. For students who are on remote days, the expectation is that they are getting transportation to their practice or wherever they're catching their bus or to their practice. There's not going to be any school transportation provided, and they should come ready to go for that practice or game. So in other words, if you are on a remote school day, there should not be any reason that you would need to enter the building. You're coming ready to play in your uniform or in your practice attire. If you need to use the restroom when you get there, there are portable restrooms available there. On the other side, when you're on your in-person days in school, those students will have the locker rooms available to them, but the lockers are going to be secured. They're not going to be issued a locker this year. So they're really just an area where they can bring their gym bag in, change, and then get out to practice or their game. I know one question that came up was, well, what do I do if I have equipment or something that I need for after school? Do I carry that around with me all day? The answer to that question in general is yes, unless we have some exceptions to the rule for large-scale equipment. So if you're a goalie in field hockey, or if you have a field hockey stick, shin guards, golf bags, things that we're not going to expect you to fit in your bag or carry around with you in school. We're going to have designated areas in the locker room and in the closets where those things can be stored. But if we're just talking about cleats and a change of clothes or a uniform, that's something that we would expect to be to fit in the bag and carry around for the day. And again, these are all new kind of guidelines or policies that we're putting in place. So we're gonna there's a chance that these could be kind of modified as the year goes on. One question was, if you're at Nichols Middle School and you're submitting a physical, does it just go to Nichols Middle School nurse, or should it go to the athletic department also? Ideally, it should go to both. And the best way to submit a physical to the athletic department is to upload it to your family ID profile. We'll take a hard copy. You could email a copy to me or our athletic trainer, Mary Farley, and all we're going to do is take that and upload it to your family ID profile. So we would prefer if everyone could get in the habit of uploading that electronic physical to your family ID profile. Golf practices, where, when, and how often. Golf practices, that schedule, again, is created by the coach. I have access to that schedule. He will be distributing the golf practice schedule. We're looking at 2 different courses, Lakeville Country Club and Pecoy Brook, which we're excited that we may get some tee times at Pecoy Brook this year. And looking at our numbers, potentially offering a limited JV schedule as well, depending on how many golfers we have come out. So those practices and matches for all high school varsity sports plan on 5 days a week, and for most 6 days a week. Golf would be the exception to that rule. They're typically only going to play 5 days a week. The weekends, the courses are pretty booked up. We have all the coaches listed on the website, so if you're wondering who a coach is, you can check that for all the varsity coaches and the middle school coaches. The Nichols Middle School cross country fee. Again, Nichols Middle School cross country is now has been bumped from an intramural to a team, a full athletic team with uniforms, buses, and a paid coach. Some of that program was funded by the Booster Club previously, so that's why that fee has increased. If you hand your physical in personally, it can be submitted as a hard copy, but again, make sure you're submitting a copy to the high school. We do communicate with the nurse over at Nichols Middle School, but it just takes one step out if we have a copy here at the high school, so we don't have to, we can take out that kind of middle step, which does sometimes slow things up a little bit. If you have a financial hardship for the user fee waiver, or for the user fee, we do have an option of a waiver, but that is for extreme financial hardship, and you need to request that waiver form by sending me an email. I will send you the form to fill out, and then we make a decision based on what is reported on the waiver. One question about a girls' soccer game being played at Nichols Field. That is likely just incorrect location, probably from one of the opponents entering the site. So I'll check that, double check that, and make sure I get it changed. Transporting a student from, so if you're transporting a student to a practice or game on a remote day, that situation, if it's is not, the transportation form is not necessary, because we're not a student athlete is not being transported from school to another school event. They're coming from home. So once they arrive to us in our care, that's when we take over the care of the student athlete. So how they get to that practice, that is the family's, that is at the family's discretion. Middle school soccer will have buses to away games, as they have in the past. There's a question asked about paying the user fee before they make the team. The answer for that is yes. We do not anticipate a significant number of cuts this year. So we're asking everyone to pay that user fee up front. Again, if they do not make the team, then yes, there would be, if there is a cut made, then there would be a refund issued. And that would not fall under the revised user fee policy. If a student athlete's cut from a team, that's a refund, no questions asked. So if you do not have a student email because you're a homeschooled student, just make sure you reach out to the coach directly. I can do that as well based off the question here, but I would follow up with the coach directly just to say, hey, we're signed. They will have the contact information based off of Family ID, but sometimes those emails are pulled from our database here, and if it's not a school email, then I would at least reach out and just kind of clarify that to make sure you're getting on that email list. Okay, I think that is all of the questions that I'm seeing at this point. Looking forward to seeing everybody and getting things started soon. Again, if you have any questions, please check the website. It has been updated. There's plenty of new information up there. And when those newsletters come out or those notifications come out, just make sure that you're reading through those carefully. I know it's a lot of information. That doesn't take that long to just get through it. And then I'm sure there will still be questions. Reach out to me. I'm excited for the season, and thank you again for tuning into this meeting.